Welcome to this week's session with the Putnam County District Library and the Guiding Ohio Online Grant. This week we're going to take a look at a couple Excel formulas. We're also going to kind of review a couple of the other tips and tricks that we've looked at when it comes to Excel. So what I've got here is I've got an Excel sheet that I'm going to pull across. I purposely have some data in here that's kind of messy looking. And with this data, what I first wanted to refresh your memory is how we had and how we can change the actual size of the different cells. We can do that if you remember right. I take the mouse. If I go up here to the top, notice how my cursor changes over. I can double click at the column there and it will then make my columns be as large as whatever the longest data source is that's in each column. But remember, I can also do that by simply clicking up here in the corner with my kind of triangle there, and it selects everything. And then again, if I click it at one of the locations here at the edge of the column and double click, and now I have everything that is as large as whatever the largest data source is. The next thing is we've talked before about how you can actually copy and paste. So notice I click on Orlando here under the city, and if I drag that down, it's going to put all of my information with Orlando there. The other thing that you would notice is notice when I scroll down, everything stayed here in this first column going across. That did that because I had highlighted this, and then what I had done is when I highlighted this, I had went to what is called View up here at the top, and I've had this where it says Freeze Top Row. If I unfreeze it, so you can see what happens is if I scroll down, notice that goes away. So I lose my information that tells me what each column is about. So if I want to refreeze, I simply highlight and I go Freeze Top Row. You can do the same thing with columns, and you can actually do additional columns as well if you, for some reason, wanted the top 2 or 3 or rows. The next thing is again, here I'm going to just copy, again, drag all the way down so that it pastes my zip code because it's the same zip code all the way across. Now, here in the first column, I have the word number. I want to know exactly how many individuals' names and addresses I have. If I put the 1, I can then, go down my page and number. Notice if I highlight this, though, and just drag down, it's just going to repeat, again, that number. However, I'm going to go up here at the top, undo what I had done. If I put the 1 and then I put 2, now if I highlight both of these and drag down, now I'm going to have my numbering system. And I would actually know, because obviously I have 23 rows. However, 1 is my data here that is telling me what each cell is up for. So I really only have 22. Then the next thing that we're going to look at is how you can do what's called a filter list with data. So in other words, notice I have purposely I have repeated information here, and I wanted you to see how if I highlight, I'm going to just select this particular row. I'm going to look at the street address. If I go up to data, I can do what's called a filter. If I click on filter, what this does is notice I now have this column with an arrow. If I click on this arrow now, everything is currently selected. I have all of my checks. I'm going to uncheck everything, and I'm simply just going to click 111 High Street. If I do that, notice what happens. I now have only the addresses that had 111 High Street in them. So this is a great tool if you need to be able to sort quickly and find information that you might have duplicates of, or that for some reason you want to know, everyone that has the name Sally, or everyone that had the name Fred, whatever that information is, or that you might be doing if you're doing something that has to do with ordering and you want to know exactly how many and so forth. Then the next item, the last item we're going to look at today, is how you can do what's called a drop-down list. Notice I have out here to the side, I'm going to undo here so I get my total list back. Out here to the side I have what's called regions. So let's say that they're north, south, east, and west, and I have that typed over here on purpose. So if I want to do what's called a drop-down list, it's going to look kind of similar here. Notice I'm still at my data. Up here, remember how I can change my ribbon across the top. When I want to do anything that has to do with my drop-down list, I'm actually going to the same area that I was at before. I'm going to go here to data. So I'm going to highlight this particular column here for my region. I'm going to go to what's called data validation. When I click on data validation, I go to data validation, the very first one, and I am going to say that I want to do a list. And when I do this, then I want to make sure that I have this in-cell drop-down checked. I can ignore blanks if I choose to, or I can uncheck that. But I am going to then click here for my source. And when I click here for my source, I'm going to say I want north, south, east, and west. So I'm going to highlight all of these because I'm going to go, notice it found my L2, which is where I'm at. And then I'm going to go here, highlight down. Now I'm at L5. Notice that's there. I'm going to simply hit enter here. Now what it's going to do is going to look at that north, south, east, and west. I'm going to say okay. And what's going to happen here is now when I go to my different cells, I have a drop down and I can pick south. I can pick east. So this is how you would make a drop down. The one thing you are going to notice is I do not have the option. I cannot type. If I were to type in here and I were to say, I don't know, I'm going to just say road, it's going to alert me that that is not a valid piece of information that I can enter into there. I have to select north, south, east, or west. This can be very helpful if you know that you obviously have got 2 or 3 things that that's going to be the answer, yes or no, true or false. That's an easy way to go about that and know that you are always putting it in correctly and it's always going to be spelled correctly. So that is the tips and tricks for this week that I hope you find useful and helpful. Everyone have a great week.